How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the What's Up Eddie channel, Divine Therapy Sessions, and of course, I'm the one and only Eddie. So glad to have you guys back, and these are my Divine Therapy Sessions. Hey guys, today I'm going to talk about what does it mean to be the chosen one, right? You hear a lot about the title of being chosen. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is for many reasons. I'm going to go on a new set of series in regards to what being chosen means, and what are the criteria in which we have to follow within this process, right? And just an overall idea, the idea and concepts. I think that we can get that picture screwed up in our minds, right? Especially to like the people previous, the ones that came before us, like the ideas that we get of perfection, and just the overall like societal norms that we have, right? Okay, so I'm just going to do this is mostly an introduction to the following series of videos that I'm going to make. So what is to be chosen? What does that title mean, right? Now, for me, the work began, and so I'm going to go do a little bit of a backstory because it helps to know where the person's coming from, right? So for me, I've had an upbringing of Christianity, right? I grew up with that type of teaching. So in my experience, I reference Jesus Christ. I reference the Judeo God, right? And so your story might be a little different than mine, but difference in the aspect of, like, say that you're from India, or maybe so you're Hindu, right? Or maybe you come from the faith of because you can actually get Christianity and separate it with Catholicism, being Jehovah Witness, Mormon. So there's different sects to everything, right? Not only that, you can say that like it's just a different religion altogether, whether it's like being Buddhist, or let's say that. So what I'm trying to say overall is it doesn't matter what walk of life you're coming from. We all have our different style, right? But what I've learned, and so this is my opinions, right? So I've felt what has worked for me is that stopping the borderlines between all of the religions is why I made the God conscious topic, right? But for me, what has changed is that I used to come from the reference point of I'm right, my religion's right, yours is wrong. So if mine is right, this is the one and only order, and the rest of but when you come from that place, what tends to happen? Well, that's why we have dogma in its entirety, right? So like we're always in a place where we're fighting another individual. Like we're not meeting each other on a platform where we can really discuss things, because we're coming in, my reasoning's right, yours is wrong, and so there's not an open conversation. And so that's why I love spirituality, because it takes that stuff away. It takes the mask off, and you start to understand your brother and your sister a lot better. And that's what has happened for me, and that's why like I love talking about this. So like I don't think that I've made it clear for other people is like what is the big difference, and why do I teach about this God conscious topic? Why do I teach about spirituality? Well, I teach about it because it has opened the doors. I've released a lot of the baggage off of me, right? So I used to come from the standpoint of Christianity being the one and only word, that only through Jesus Christ could you make it to your Savior. But I always had these questions: who is God? What is God? Why are other people have different faiths? Why are there so many different faiths? Right? So then this is another. So once I've had my spiritual awakening, which my story comes from, like I had to stop drinking, and once I stopped drinking, I started to become more conscientious of what I was doing, and then from there I noticed that I was being called to do something bigger with my life, right? And it just so happens that me being an alcoholic, I had to elevate as not only as my physical, but my spiritual side too, right? And from there is where I found spirituality. And it looks a little different for everybody, but for me, I'm being called to teach about the newfound ideas that I have that I think that are really useful for other people to know. So I think one of the big things for me is the blockage went away. I started to learn about, well, okay, so let me know. I want to know where the standpoint, instead of fighting another person, what is their religion, and why I want to know what it's all about. So I studied Mormonism. I studied the, I guess you would say Jewish, like the Hebrew faith, right? And I'm not saying I studied it extensively, but I have a good idea of it. I studied Buddhism, right? I studied Hinduism. And so I started coming to this realization that because I put this border up around myself, saying that my way is the only way and no other way, it actually taught me something. And you see, this is just a evolution of what happened within me. That border didn't start or end with my faith. It was within all parts of my life. And when I changed that part, it started to bleed into all other portions of my life, and that's when it started to become more beautiful for me, because I realized something. I stopped looking at the differences that I had with other people. I started noticing the similarities. And one of the biggest things for me is that most of the faiths, they have the same standing points. A lot of them actually are interwoven into each other. But we come from this place, this old programming that my way is right, your way is wrong, because my God is better than your God, or my God knows better than your God. When in actuality, we don't know much about God. We see the many faces of what God is, but at the end of the day, what do we really know until we're not in this platform anymore, right? So these are all just opinions at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, why should we use faith or religion to separate each other? Isn't that going against the actual idea of what the religion was made for in the beginning? Yeah, so you hear the honk outside? Like, you start to listen to the signs of the universe. It's confirmation. It's trying to tell you, screaming at you. That's what spirituality is all about. And I know this is one of the big things for me that I had to overcome, and you might be going through the same thing. Right? You might be wondering, like, but I grew up with this faith, and then the people around you start to judge you for it. But it goes against the teachings of that faith. So it's, at the end of the day, it could be utilized as a weapon, and that's the problem with a lot of the faith today, right? Now, getting into the title of being chosen, you guys. So what does that mean? All that means at the end of the day is this. Like, okay, so would you say that Jesus Christ was chosen? Of course. Would you say, let's say, when you look at like Gandhi or Buddha, are they chosen? Absolutely. What makes them different from them and us? Well, I can tell you that there is no difference. We are the same as them. And when you start to study different subjects within spirituality, you realize that there is no difference. I am Buddha. Buddha is me. Buddha is Eddie. How could we all not be the same at the end of the day? These are just, when we look at the different lives that we've had up to this point right now, right? And at this point in time, why am I learning the same subject matter that Buddha studied? Was because we have the similarities. We all, when you start to find out that the collective is one conscious mind, we all go back to the one. There is like the universe has different laws, And one of the law is the law of one. So all of us are one at the end of the day. We're separated right now from source. Source being what I call God. And just because I call it God doesn't make it any different, right? So it's when you stop when you release the borders, those restraints that and those binds that we have on ourselves because of labeling, or that stuff doesn't work. And I realize that so much, and that starts to evolve each time, right? So you look at, so for me, I like to use Jesus Christ because that's the faith that I grew up with, right? So like, I always believe that like Jesus Christ is perfect, right? He is the prime example of what we should be. It teaches that within the Bible. And so it takes faith to believe in that man, right? So there's only one path. So what I've been taught is that there's one path through Jesus Christ that gets me to God. And what Jesus Christ did for me will essentially and inevitably save me. Now, I believe in that because it's been instilled in me, but now I have a different opinion on it. And that opinion comes because I've been growing spiritually. It's 11:11 on the clock. So if you've been here this far and I just said 11:11, a major portal is happening. I know someone on the other side of this camera is having breakthroughs spiritually. These gateways are opening. Angel numbers may be huge within your process, and it is huge within my process because that's where my spirituality began to take off. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. So so I think about what has changed, in my opinion, on the process with Jesus Christ. I believe that we're all the Son of God, the daughters of God. Because how could we not be? Jesus Christ came into the physical form being from the Father. He is Lord. We call him that. They call them that within the Bible, Lord Jesus Christ, right? Yes, Lord, they would answer him. And his intellect was beyond. Break down what Jesus Christ did. It sounds very spiritual in nature, does it not? I'm not trying to sell you on spirituality. If you're here, you're already spiritual. We're all having a spiritual experience. Or what do they say? We're a spiritual being having a human experience. And in Jesus Christ's human experience, he was tested beyond what is normal. Think about what he went through and what he had to sacrifice. He was sacrificed, right? But what did he do? They said that for 40 nights and 40 days, he was tempted by the devil. But does it go into detail how he was tempted? No, it doesn't. I'm sure what he was offered was probably, what most of us are offered these days. And if you probably went into details, what did he do? He fasted, right? Those are principles that go within a lot of different faiths, not just Christianity, not just Judaism, right? Which he was both. So there is no right answer. And that's when I try to that's what I want for other people to expand their mind, because when you start to think about it in a different aspect, it really changes the way that you approach the world as a whole. Now, it sounds like the 40 days and 40 nights was his commitment to God, because he had a connection to Lord. He was listening to God. You think about him speaking with God, right? And then and in turn, in essence, taught us the same things. That's why he's so renowned and redeemed, right? Because he was perfect. But was Jesus Christ perfect the whole time? I think that his journey, and this might be offensive to people, but I think his journey was a lot more different than you think. I believe that he had struggles coming up in the world. They don't talk about his childhood. What was little Messiah like? Right? What was his teenager years like? We only see him at a certain point in his life. What was his life beforehand? So we get the misconception in our mind that we can't be Jesus because we're not perfect. I'm telling you that you are perfect. Within you, you've already the consciousness within you, that soul, the soul that you have, is perfect. But because of society and because of what's normal today, it's been polluted and diluted. The further we get away from the source, the more diluted and distorted it becomes. It's facts. That is a fact. But what I'm trying to let you know is that, so this goes back to the title of being chosen. What does that mean? It's just a label at the end of the day. It's a label for us to know that we are on that path as well. You are the sisters, and we're all sons and daughters of God in one way or another. I do believe that there's one creator. There's a one creator God. But when you look at all the faiths, they start to intermingle and interwoven with each other, so we don't know. I believe that there's multiple deities. I believe that there's a structure of hierarchy. How could there not be? When you think about how it is in heaven, they say so above, so below, so above, right? So if you think about how we work as humans, that's how gods have to be working as well, right? But they're more righteous, more virtuous. When you think about God and his archangels, you think about it in the aspect of hierarchy. There are different sections of angels in heaven. And who are the ones closest to God? The ones that explain him, right? God's eyes, God's ears. They all have different names, right? And they're all in service to God. And they're all pure, righteous. What does God, the divine, I know what because God talks to me. I know what God calls them. He calls them his saints. I believe that each and every one of them went through the same process that we did. They're just further along. Right? Now, when you think about what the title chosen means, all that means is that God has selected you to start a journey different, obtuse from the norm, what other people deem that. And you'll find within that chosen title is that you're going to have to abide by a whole different set of rules. You no longer abide by the same matrix that we've been living in. You start to think differently. You start to see differently. You start to speak differently. I wasn't like this before. The way that I was before, I was drinking, doing drugs. I was cheating, lying, stealing. I was being a person that becomes the norm within our structure, where because this place can be a very fearful, fear-based, self-loathing. It can feel like Sisyphus. It feels like we're trying to get that ball up the hill and it continuously being rolled back down. And that'll be that way for a lot of us, especially the ones who have been chosen. Why? Because we weren't meant to fit within the matrix. You were meant to be the opposite. And that's why, like, you hear a lot of the times that people who say they're chosen or been chosen, they resonate with being a black sheep. Why is that? It's because the journey was not meant to be easy. And you'll notice that a lot of our lives have been set up in such a way that ensues growth. So I am going to further expand on each and every one of the things that I just hit on, very, very, I haven't went into detail at all, but I'm going to go into details on all of it. What are we expected to be? What are we expected to do? What are some of the things, right? Like, because we don't have relationships the same way as other people. I'm going to say that now. And look at, if you're on my video and you're watching this and you resonate with it, I'm telling you, you were chosen. You do not have to be perfect to be chosen. In fact, some of us are less than perfect. We've lived a less than perfect life, but still have been chosen. God does not redeem the ones that don't need help. He helps the ones that do need help. Doesn't that make sense to you? Who did Jesus Christ, at the end of the day, save? Who did he hang out with? The drunkards. Who was he preaching to? His word would mean nothing if he wasn't talking to the ones that had faith. He was talking to the ones that didn't. how can one side of the coin exist without the other? So he has to come, God chooses the ones that are imperfect and he makes perfect, right? So we have to change the perspective or the way that we have been programmed to think about what that chosen title means, right? It's beautiful, is it not? For me, it's like it changes the whole game up because I realize that like there's so much more to it, right? And like when there's a certain amount of growth, and you'll find in your journey there's a certain amount of growth that needs to take place when you assume the title of being chosen. When you actually say, I'm chosen from God, and I am a disciple in my own way, and I'm sending the message out to the next person in my own way. That is discipleship, right? And then you figure out within this spiritual process that you have power, psychic power. You have, and that the reason why you haven't been able to live the life that you were meant to live, promised by God, being chosen, because you haven't been following the set of rules that someone who is chosen has to abide by, right? And you realize that God's commandments are not only the commandments within a book. These are actually laws and principles of spirituality. When you abide by them, your life begins to become different because you're no longer abiding by the set and rules of which have been forced upon us within the Earth platform, right? All right, guys, so I went kind of long on this. Hopefully you guys caught something from it. I'm really going to get into this subject matter. I believe that it's very useful, and I believe that when you start to do the work and really be within the process of assuming the title and implementing it in your life and really listening to the universe and the way the universe talks, that's when you become something different and you evolve. We start to become different from the algorithm. And when you're different from it, you stand out. And when you stand out, there's a reason for that. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go with that. I love you guys very much. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Make sure to subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. All right, guys.